Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we help simplify the lives of families going through the college planning process. I'm Kristin Clark. I'm a career exploration coach for 16 to 26-year-olds, and I'm here with Bobby, our ACT and SAT guru. And Bobby's going to tell us today about this new enhanced ACT test and what we're seeing as far as the results.
Absolutely. So yeah, this will be a quick one today, but we're going to look at a little at some of the release tests. So ACT releases 3 or 4 tests every year. After the students take them, it's used to be called the Test Information Report. Now it's called My Answer Key, which is abbreviated MAK for short. So when you take some of the ACTs, usually the October and the June and a couple of others, you can pay, like $30 or something and get a copy of the test and every question you got right or wrong with an actual copy of the question, so you can go and review the test. Other ones, they don't release it. Some test dates, it's not released, like the February test is not released, but the April, June, and October are. And so we've gone through all of the practice tests. We've talked about the changes on the enhanced ACT, that it is shorter, and one of the and so they released they have just released a 5th practice test. So there are only 5 practice tests existing for the ACT in its current form. And what they did to release those first 4 practice tests is they took past ACT released ACT tests, and they just deleted some questions. They deleted 15 English questions. They deleted 15 math questions. They deleted 4 reading questions and just made them shorter. But they also changed the test specifications a bit. And so that kind of seemed like a strange way to do it, right? You should make a brand new test, right? They released,
right? Yeah.
And then they released test 5, and we had a quick discussion about how test 5, it was a little bit different than other ones. But now the October ACT results were released as the My Answer Key just last week. And so now we've got an actual real test that is new and has not been seen before. And basically, just wanted to share with you, the test is for English and reading and science, basically just what we expected from the practice tests. So if you've been practicing based on practice tests, then you're going to be in very, very good shape on English, reading, and science.
That's good to know, Bobby, but you said something that I want our listeners to really hear. Are you telling me that you pay $75 to take this test and they don't give you your answers that you put in?
Right.
Unless $30?
Another however much it is. Yeah, it's something like that. Yep.
Drives me crazy, but keep going.
Well, now the interesting thing is now with the SAT gives you a score and you can never see the questions and answers ever.
Really?
So the new digital SAT, we have nothing to look at except for the practice tests 4 through 10. 1 through 3, they just removed and said they weren't representative anymore. So you have just 4 through 10, that's it. And that none of them are actual tests that were ever given. And you can never see a real SAT ever again because it's kept secret. So at least the ACT is being more transparent and like giving you copies of the test.
I kind of feel like if I paid for it, I want to see how I did.
I know, absolutely. And so, right. So with the SAT, we're just guessing as to how representative the practice tests are for the ACT or for the SAT.
Well, and here's the other part, Bobby, as you're coaching kids, you're just blindly using the number that they got in that section.
Right.
Because you don't know, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Right.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot more even that's more embarrassing about it. But the reason the ACT has always been so great is you've got literally 100 past real tests that were released to students with their answers. So you can go and look and with actual real scoring scales. But for the new test, now we have 1. So next year we'll have 4. And then once again, the ACT will be the easiest test to prepare for. It still is, but it's, but right now it's only marginally easier, right? Now, the one big difference that we've seen on this new enhanced ACT, the October that was released, is that you are also very well prepared on math if you use past ACT math tests to prepare. But as has always been true with ACT, if the test is harder, the scoring scale gets more favorable, so you can miss more questions, right? And so the one thing that is very
Hold up.
right,
What did
yeah.
you just say? I didn't.
If the test is really hard, then you can miss more questions and get the same score. So like normally if you miss 3 math questions, maybe you might score a 35 instead of a perfect 36. But if on a really hard test, if you miss 4 or 5 questions, you might still get a 35 on that test, right? Because it's harder, because your score is just compared to how you do compared to everyone else. So the
Oh,
one thing that we did note is that this new October ACT, and I'm going to add this to the screen. So here's like the MC5 is the most recent practice test that they released. And on that test, let's say there are 41 scored questions. So if you miss 6 out of 41 questions, right, then you score a 30 on that test,
okay.
right? Now, the way they're presenting the scoring scale is different now. There are 41 questions now. This October test that was just released, if you get 35 out of 41 correct, you score a 32 on that test, which is an indication that this test is crazy hard.
Yeah, but it's backwards, so people realize that.
It's presented differently. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
when I show it to my students, I like change the scoring scales where they look similar. They've just decided to change the way they
Got
present
it.
whatever, right?
Okay.
But anyway, so the thing is, it is harder, but the way the ACT math section has worked, and we've talked about this a bunch, is basically there's like a collection of questions that you see on every single test. They're all the same thing. They just change the numbers, right? So you've seen the question over and over and over. But then every test has 10 questions or so that are just hard and weird, right? And what this test had was more of the hard and weird than before. So it's now maybe half stuff you've seen before, and the other half stuff you've only seen if you've taken like 6 or 8 past math practice tests. None of the questions are new. It's just more of the rarer ones.
And are you saying too, Bobby, you know, like you used to explain it where there was maybe multiple steps?
Right,
So,
exactly. Well, right. But some of them are just weird and hard and not multiple steps, right? Because normally that is how most of the hard stuff is just, oh, it's easy stuff, but it's just more steps. But like here, some of it is just things that are just kind of strange. So let me, I need to.
good. You're going to show us an example.
Yeah,
of
I'm going to
some
show you
of
some examples. I've got to get to the window. Oh, it's here, maybe. No, it's, I have too many windows open. That one? Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
And
So,
can you
like,
bump it up a little bit, Bobby?
what's that?
Can you bump it up a little bit? Because it's a little
Make it,
small.
make it bigger. Let's see.
Yeah.
Do that. Is that any better? Or maybe if I do this.
There you go. Thank
Yeah,
you.
is that better? Okay, so now this question, this is the same thing we've discussed a million times. This is a plug-in numbers question, right? It's got algebra on it. You can plug in numbers. It's just messier than other questions, right? So like you could make up some numbers on this, right? Like, I don't know, like if you said like, just pick numbers for C and H and Q, right? And X. There's all these variables in it, but you can do it, right? So let's see. I'll move that like that. Is that still readable?
Yep, it is.
And so if you said like, I don't know, like X is 5 and H is 2 and C is 3. Oh, wait, C is 3, right? Just picking some numbers for those letters, right? Then this would, I guess, be 3 times 5 minus 2 is equal to Q, right?
Right.
So Q would be 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay. And the question asks for what's the solution? Okay, the solution would be X. So actually the answer to this question would be 5. And then you would just put all those same numbers into the answers. And so the answer here ends up being G, but you would say, okay, that would be 9 divided by 3 plus 2. Okay, that's 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, so that's what X is 5. That matches, that's the answer, and you check all 4. Right? This is something we've done on ACTs forever. It's just more, it's just weirder than, right?
Yeah, because that was a lot of steps that I didn't understand when you were coming up with.
But I'm just throwing numbers at the problem and sticking them in there and then seeing what they solve for. That's something we've done a million times.
Got it.
Like now, questions are numbered by difficulty, and now the test has 45 questions on it. And so this is a question 17 on this test. Now, this is something they have absolutely tested before. This is something called unit circle that is a crazy hard concept that you learn in Algebra 2. It is asking for the period and amplitude of this function. And this is just something, one of those weird things that you just have to, if you learned it last week in Algebra 2, then this is very, very easy. But if you don't know it, then there's no way to answer it at all.
Well, Bobby, so based on what you told us earlier, know the answer, you better off just skipping it?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you, like, in geometry, you would learn words like period and amplitude, so you might know what they, but yeah, otherwise you're going to have to just skip this question, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And so so they've asked this same question many times before. There's nothing new about it, but it's just like, oh, okay, like, you need to know that, right? But the amplitude is just how much it goes up and down, so the amplitude is 2, which also, if you just know
4.
That's the amplitude, that's just how you read the sine equation. And then the period is how long it takes to repeat, so it's that long, right? And this, it says this distance is 1. So it looks like it. Oh, no, see, I just did it wrong. The period is how long it takes to repeat. That's how long it takes to repeat. So the period is this. So if that's 1, then the period is 1/3. Whatever. This is so one of the easiest questions on the test if you know units, are super easy.
Yeah, and because I got to tell you, I looked at it and I was like, "What?"
No, it looks, and that's the point. It's so scary and so intimidating, especially if you haven't taken Algebra 2 yet, right? And that's why I always say Algebra 2 is the thing. Okay, now this thing is really interesting. They always have a shaded regions question on every ACT, where to calculate the shaded, usually the shaded regions question is like subtract a circle out of a square, and you just take the square and then take a part of a circle out of it, or take a whole circle out, right? This one is just scarier looking because there's 2 different pieces you have to take out of the square. But remember that these strategies are always just geometry is just draw, label, write formulas, and draw lines to chop weird shapes up into normal shapes.
Yeah.
And the thing is already kind of chopped up. But if you chop it up more like this, I mean, okay, that thing that I've cut it now into 4 1/4, right?
Oh, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. And then so each of these things is 1/8, right?
Yep.
Well, then if you take this little white piece over here and you move it over here, this is just 1/8 of the circle.
Oh, so it's logic.
Right. But it is. And so it's the same thing they've done a million times before. It's just way harder. So, right. So this is 7/8 of the square is what that measures. Right. But like I looked at this, and even having done this so long, I still looked at this. I was like, wait, and I spent like 5 minutes trying to solve it the hard way. And then I was like, oh, you can just chop that up. And so even I, knowing these strategies for this test, forget, oh yeah, you just chop it up and it's easier. So it still is easy stuff in here. And then like one of the things that's on every ACT is like count up how many times the thing happens, right? So like, so it's like, you reach in your closet and you have 4 shirts and 3 pants and, 5 scarves. How many different outfits can you make? Well, 4 times 5 times 3 or whatever, right? This is just another weird, harder version thing. This is, you're given a questionnaire and you can answer yes or no to.
And Bobby, my answer was 10, which is not an option.
And so, right. Well, so you remember, like, if you're reaching into a closet and you're picking things out, it's 5 times and 3 times 5 times 2 or whatever, whatever the numbers are, right? This is just, you can answer yes or no on a question, right? There are 2 choices and then another 2 choices. So 2 times 2 is how many different ways you can answer the first 2 questions. And then, so if there's 5 questions, the answer to this is just 2 times 2 times 2 times 2.
Oh, okay.
This is something we've all, like, that has been on the ACT forever, but this is just presented in a weirder way. So it's just that, which is
I don't like it.
I don't like it at all, right? And then like this thing, here's another one, question 39. So very near the end of the test. This is one of the hardest questions on the test. This is another plug-in question. It's just really messy, right? So A, B, and M, 40% of M is equal to A. So this is the translate from English to math thing, right? Because they're not, they're saying 40% of M is equal to A. But like, okay, I'm going to throw numbers at it and say, okay, let's plug in. And you say, okay, if we're talking about percentages, let's make M 100. If M is 100, then what is A? Well, 40% of M is equal to A. Right? A is 40% of M. So, okay, so A is 40. That's easier to deal with. Okay. And then B is 7A over 10. Okay.
So 7 times 40.
Okay, so that's 28. 280 divided by 10 is 28, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now it asks for what is 112% of M, right?
Oh, 112.
That's 112. So really nice that we did, right? It chose 100, right? Okay, great. And then they're asking for that. The answer is 112. And now you just put in 28 into the answers. And 4 times 28 is 112. So the answer is A. You just put in that value for B that we calculated, right? So if B is 28, then 4 times 28 is 112. And that's the answer.
I'm sitting here thinking this is easy, Bobby, because you're taking me through it. But I know if I was sitting in front of this test, it'd be like, whoa, what the heck?
But this is the thing, right? This would be like nearly impossible to do with algebra, right? And that's the whole trick, right? Is that so all the same tricks still work, right? And then just a couple of last ones. These are the last 2 questions, like the 2 of the hardest questions on the test. And this is just to see how insane this test got it then, right? And so what is the sum of the first 75 integers? There is a nice little formula for that. You can also just like kind of write it out and count it up, but it takes a while, right? So there is a trick to it, right? And then this last question, just to be very mean, what are the equations of all of the asymptotes to this function, right? If you're in algebra 2 or calculus, you totally know how to do that. If not, probably one that you would skip. But then that brings us back to the beginning. You can miss. So like those questions, several of them I said, well, you'd probably just have to skip them, right?
Right.
Well, let's say you skip those 2 questions. I said, okay, just skip them. And you get everything else right using all the plugging in techniques and the chopping things up like I showed you. You still got a 35. You have a near perfect score because it's 39 questions right?
Yep.
So,
yep.
Right. You can miss 6 questions on this test and still have a 32, which is a top like 3% score in the nation. So who cares, right? And that's the point, right? So that's all. My point is when students run into this test and look at it, it's going to be intimidating. The math is going to be very scary. I would not give this to students as their first test probably, but I'm going to give it to them as their second test and be like, okay, like you hated that math, didn't you? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, but you still got a 28, right? And they're like, yeah, okay, right. You know, right. I missed so many questions, still got a pretty good score, right? So yeah, that's it. So that's the updates. And of course we'll learn more but we'll have the December test will also be released. And then we'll have the April test, and so we'll just know more as time goes. But anyway, the point is the ACT is still the same as it always was. It's just a little shorter, and then they've made it a little harder on the math just to or at least on this one test. And just like the patterns of the ACT, maybe the next one will be very easy, and easy is actually bad because then 5 questions on a really easy test, then you get like a 27, right? So you want the test to be hard. Don't let it intimidate you. Just go and make in the first pass, get correct everything you can get correct, and that's it.
Well, what you proved to me is this, Bobby. If a parent right now has a kid in high school, and they were I got what you were explaining, but I would have been lost if that's you. And you can't help your kid. Guess who you need to call, Bobby.
Well, and that's true, and also as hard as some of that math was that we just looked at. I mean, we've looked at the SAT math before, and it's a lot worse. It's just on the SAT, you can use Desmos to solve a lot of problems.
And I think I think we probably went through this a little bit faster than we normally do. So
Okay, yeah, I was kind of
yeah.
rushing through things to show it.
Yes,
With
no,
students, you'd go a lot more slowly. But anyway, that's it. So yeah, so it's good news that the test is pretty predictable. It's how you thought. There's nothing new on it on the math section, just more of the weird stuff. And the strategies all do, once you know the strategies, you know how to attack them. So that's it. All right. Well, next week I'm going to be off on the family farm in Kentucky again. So maybe I'll be able to show you a nice view.
all right. Cool.
All right.
Next
Have a
time.
good one.